What up? What up? What up? My name is Chris Asbrock, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts, presented to you by Impact Sports Cincinnati. As always, you can check out each episode of the show on YouTube and on my podcast page, anchor.fm/Chris-Asbrock. Well, if you're a Bengals fan, this is, it's bad. It is bad. Bengals fell again to drop to 0-7 on the season. 27-17 to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, Bengals they've lost 14 of 15 and 16 of their last 18 games. Their last win dates back to December 16th against the Oakland Raiders. So obviously we've gone a long, long time without this team pulling out a victory. However, if you look at the way the game played out, the Bengals did have the lead entering the fourth quarter. They were up 10-9 entering the fourth quarter. And again, if you look at the way it is, 0-7. There were two games this team was not in. The San Francisco game and the Pittsburgh game. They were not even remotely in the game in either one of those two. So, you look at I kind of look at it a little bit positive here that they are, a couple plays away from being 5-2 on the season. Yeah, the defense isn't good. They're giving up a lot of yards, but points-wise, they're not as bad as you would think, moving forward. They're giving up the yards, but they're not giving up the points, and that's what, unfortunately the offense hasn't been able to hold up their end of the bargain. The scoring play started. Josh Lambo got things going in the second quarter. The first quarter went scoreless. The Bengals had the lead at halftime. They had the lead at the end of the third quarter, and that was it. And then it obviously came unraveled after that. But, the Bengals in front of 42,784, which I'm hard-pressed to believe that was the actual number of people in attendance, saw the Bengals, get dominated in a lot of aspects of that game. Offensively, Leonard Fournette rushes 29 times for 131 yards. That's an average of 4.5 a carry. Gardner Minshew had 9 rushes for 48 yards, and we all know what Gardner Minshew can do. He was 15 of 32 in the air for 255 yards. He was sacked twice for 11 yards. It's tough. You look at the way the Bengals season's played out, and it's obviously not how anybody's expected things to go. Andy Dalton, he was the man on the ground for the Bengals, and that's not good. When he rushed 4 times for 33 yards, the Bengals total had 20 rushes for 33 yards total, so obviously Andy Dalton had all of those. Joe Mixon rushed 10 times for 2 yards. Giovanni Bernard, 4 times for nothing. Alex Erickson twice, and he was stopped for -2. And Andy Dalton was 22 of 43 in the air, 276 yards. He was sacked twice for 18 yards. He did have a touchdown and 3 interceptions. Now, the 3 interceptions were one was a pick six where John Jerry screened out Giovanni Bernard to where Gio couldn't get to the screen play, and that was a pick six there. The one interception by Miles Jack. That was Miles Jack jumping the route, and so you got to that one's. I'd say that one's on Andy, and then the last one that Harrison picked off, that one was on Andy as well. He obviously did not see Harrison, at the safety position, and he stared his man down and chucked it right there, and it was an easy interception. So, in terms of the way the game played out, Andy Dalton obviously was not the guy, that the Bengals were hoping. And I've defended Andy Dalton. I will continue to defend him for the most part. But it's hard to defend situations like this when you're up 10-9 going into the third quarter and you throw 3 interceptions on consecutive drives. And that's, that you can't have. And the Bengals, it's tough. It's things like that they continue to shoot themselves in the foot. The Bengals had the ball for only 21 minutes compared to 38 minutes for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville continued again, but if you look at the way the first Bengals held them on the first 4 drives of the game. They went for fourth and goal, and obviously Preston Brown made a big stop on Leonard Fournette at the goal line Bengals got the ball at the 1 yard line, and obviously they went 3 and out and gave the ball back. But then they held Jacksonville to 3 straight punts before an 11-play, 69-yard drive that ended in a field goal. So the Bengals down 3-0, but then they come right back, and they get a touchdown right towards the end of the quarter. That was a 6-play, 90-yard drive that gained 80 net yards based off of the 10 that were set back due to a penalty. But overall, I'm not going to really get into it much this in this game here. It's kind of the same old song and dance with the Cincinnati Bengals. It's tough. Again, they continue to find ways to lose a game. However, again, I'm not in the way things are playing out. And I saw Richard Skinner was talking about it on Sports Authority on Channel 12 last night. He did mention, the Bengals offense is predicated on the play action pass in the rush game. And if you don't have an offensive line, you can't run the ball. And that's where you have the problem here is you can't run that ball. You can't throw in the play action pass. And so you're keeping the offense or the defense can, flat out pin their ears back and go after you regardless of, what's going to go on, because Bobby Hart is a human turnstile. He just sits there and lets guys go by him. You've seen a lot of rotation in the offensive line. It's not as pretty as we once, would think, but, still they're, things are, it's until we get some guys back, it's going to be the same thing. And, now you've got, you're staring down 0-8 at the bye. That's a realistic possibility simply because this Bengals team cannot get out of their own way. And they just, they continue again to shoot themselves in the foot. Kevin Huber had a great day punting, 6 punts for 290 yards. He averaged 48.3. He had 3 inside the 20. A couple of those were pinned down right at the 1 or the 2 yard line. So Kevin Huber continues to be the guy who gets things set for the, in terms of flipping the field position. So special teams did a great job for the Bengals today. Wilson once again gets a huge punt return, and that's what Brandon Wilson has been. He's been the guy. A 61-yard kickoff return really set up. That was after the pick six, put the Bengals in a great position to move, to get some points. But unfortunately, it ended in an Andy Dalton interception, of course, which is again how most of the drives ended in the fourth quarter. But, the Bengals, Alex Erickson, was a man amongst boys in terms of the Bengals offensive output. He had 8 receptions on 14 targets for 137 yards. He averaged 17.1. 48 of those did come on one play. Tyler Boyd had just an atrocious game. Definitely one of the worst games we've seen Tyler Boyd play, where he had 2 drops and he did have a fumble. He was targeted 14 times just like Alex Erickson, but only hauled in 5 of those for 55 yards. And so he averaged 11 a reception. His longest was 19. Auden Tate continues to be a guy that I think really needs. I think he stepped up. He was targeted 6 times by Andy Dalton, and he hauled in 3 of those for 65 yards, so averaging over 21 yards reception there. His longest was 33. Eifert and Sample were targeted. So Eifert twice and Sample once. So that's your tight ends only factored in 3 passing plays, and that's something that this offense you have to have more tight end involvement. Tyler Eifert, when healthy, is one of the best receiving tight ends in the league, hands down. And when he's not contributing to where he was targeted twice, he did haul in both of those for 10 yards, but his longest was 6. So, he had receptions of 6 and 4 yards. Like that's not going to cut it. When Drew Sample had 1 reception for 3 yards, those are the ones you can't. That can't happen, and that's what this offense has to get it going. Again, it's Andy Dalton is. I think it's time now at 0-7, and obviously you're in the midst of a rebuild in the next season, and perhaps beyond that. You need to really look at what you have in Ryan Finley and perhaps even Jake Dolegala. Even though Dolegala, let's be honest, he's not going to be a regular starter in this league. If he does, then good for him. But it will not be with the Cincinnati Bengals. So that's where I say he's just going to be a backup in terms of his career trajectory with the Cincinnati Bengals. But you drafted Finley. Now's the time to see what you got in him. Yeah, you're going to go up against a Los Angeles Rams team that's pretty darn good, but you gotta see what you got with these guys, and it's time to do it. I think this week, Zach Taylor didn't say no that he was open to a coach or a quarterback change, but that's something we could obviously see possibly moving forward. So that's going to be something to watch and continue to keep an eye on moving forward this week. AJ Green's still out. He did not rule out A.J. Green for this upcoming game. So, things have to start getting turned around because then again, like I said, you've got the bye week after this upcoming game against the Los Angeles Rams in London. You got the bye week, and then you come back with the Baltimore Ravens at home. And, you saw what Baltimore did. It's frustrating to see. I continue to you just continue to get beaten down, but we're at the point now to where it's commonplace for this team, especially this season. But I was, like I was saying before, I said it before, I survived the lost decade with this franchise. This is nothing compared to the lost decade, in my opinion. I think that this team, the talent's there. It's a different mindset, it feels. They just, there's just some pieces. There's a lot of injuries, and guys just aren't getting it done. But, obviously injuries are not it's not an excuse. Every team's got injuries. Unfortunately, ours were just early on, and we just haven't been able to recover from that. But if you think about it, the Bengals are going to be looking, they're expected to pick first or second in the draft overall next year. So you're going to think about you're going to have 2 number 1 draft picks playing next year when Jonah Williams comes back. I mean, that's your left tackle right there. So then, with, Cordy Glenn and all his shenanigans, which I'm going to get to that here in a little bit, that's something that, bringing back Jonah Williams, that's going to be a huge piece for this Bengals offensive line moving forward because you're going to get, they're going to be able to gel and move forward, together as a solid unit, in these games. But until that happens, you're going to continue to see what we've seen all season. But then again, like I said, it's not all doom and gloom in my opinion. Like I said, you're just a couple plays away from 5-2 on the season. We've been in those games, and unfortunately, you have to make the plays to get things done. And this team hasn't done that, so that is on them. But it's not. I said it's not. They did. The Bengals got 21 first downs, 12 of those through the air, 6 of those via penalty. So, obviously the Jacksonville, they helped us out with the penalties, but 78 plays were run by Jacksonville, and they averaged 5.9 yards per offensive play. They rushed the ball 44 times for 216 yards, like I stated earlier, and 244 of those total yards were through the air. So you had 216 on the ground, 244 in the air. You're gonna struggle. Obviously, the 244 through the air, not a bad number. The 216, just when they get, the one thing I noticed about the defense is when they would get to, when they would get to Gardner Minshew, they had him surrounded a couple times, and he was able to escape out of the pocket and make a positive run, which a lot of those were long runs. You just had defensively. I mean, obviously, we continue to touch on the offense and how bad the offensive line is, and therefore that throws everything off when you can't get a rushing game going and you can't, your passing game is thrown off because of that. it kind of shifts then to the defense to where, again, the defense gave up, a ton of yards, 460 yards, but there was a couple dropped interceptions by BW Webb. He's got to make those plays. Yes, I know he has the cast, and I know that's a tough play to ask for, but you got to make those plays. And unfortunately, he, one of those would have been a sure pick six. He catches that, he goes to the house. Again, unfortunately, they didn't haul it in, and now you're back to square one there. And then he had another chance at an interception, which he ended up dropping, and Jacksonville ended up going down and scoring a touchdown on. So things like that, these things cannot happen. Geno Atkins had a great game on defense, as you would expect. He was disruptive all game, or at least in the first part of the game. It's the defense does a great job of battling and continuing to keep teams, off the scoreboard in terms of touchdowns. But, you gotta quit giving up the big plays of over 20 yards, which are the big chunk plays, and that's something that this Bengals team gave up a lot of. They gave up 8 plays yesterday of over 20 plus yards. Again, you had the 2 missed interceptions there. Geno Atkins was just, again, phenomenal all day long. Tony McRae, with William Jackson being out and Drake Kirkpatrick being out, Tony McRae steps up. Darqueze Dennard steps in to replace one of those guys, but then Tony McRae's out there, and he was victimized all game long by Jacksonville. Gardner Minshew, he was targeting Tony McRae because you know what you're going to get out of him. You go to BW Webb, and I thought, like I said, BW Webb had a pretty good game aside from those dropped interceptions. But again, it's tough to make a play in that cast, but you have to do it because that could change the flow of this game, and that's what happened here. And again, that's a 14-point swing if you think about it. With the touchdown, what would have been a pick six, and then the dropped interception that he had where the Jacksonville, they ended up going down and scoring a touchdown off of it. Those are the big plays that you cannot have happen. And Jacksonville, again, it looks like I saw it on Twitter. Jay Morrison from The Athletic, he tweeted out, the Bengals allowed a field goal in the final 2 minutes of the first half. That's the 29th time in the last 39 games that's happened where points have been given up in the final 2 minutes of the half. Just like in hockey, you state you don't want to give up a goal in the first 2 minutes of a period and the last 2 minutes of a period. Well, the Bengals, obviously, you don't want to give up points at the end of a half or end of especially the end of the half and the beginning, a couple minutes of the half. That throws everything off. And that's what the Cincinnati Bengals team has repeatedly done, as that stat stated. When your defense is on the field for 38 minutes, you have to be able to shut a team down and not give up points. Jacksonville was only 1 of 6 in the red zone yesterday for 17%. You would expect to win a football game if you hold a team to 1 of 6 in the red zone when you go 2 of 4 in the red zone. And the Bengals, again, they just couldn't get it going. If you look at Jacksonville, Jacksonville had the ball twice in the third quarter, twice, and it ended in a field goal and a punt. And the Bengals, they can't. These kind of things cannot happen. The first 2 quarters were dominated by Jacksonville in time of possession. 10 minutes and 41 seconds in the first quarter and 11 minutes in the second quarter. And again, then it dropped down and it became more even in the third and fourth quarters. But again, the Cincinnati Bengals, you have to be able to make things happen and capitalize on opportunities. And the Bengals just haven't been able to do that. And the timely interceptions thrown by Andy Dalton really continue to kill this team. So again, it's time now to look at Ryan Finley and what can he do moving forward now and see what you got. The season's lost. Most likely you're staring down an 0-16 season with the way things are going to play out. What do? Do you move forward with Andy Dalton, his contract is up at the end of next season? Or, like I said, when you're picking towards the first part of the draft in the first or second position, most likely, and a lot of people are thinking quarterback, what do you do? Do you look at what you got in Ryan Filling to see how that's going to play out and see how you can adjust everything from there? The trade deadline is coming up. Basically, it's a week from tomorrow. So the 29th is the trade deadline, Tuesday the 29th. The Bengals have some pieces that they could most likely get rid of and get some picks for. What do you do? Cordy Glenn is that guy that obviously we know that Cordy Glenn was suspended by the team for this last game. He's been reinstated, and he's never going to play another game for this team anymore. He wants out, and he doesn't want to play here, so grant him that opportunity. Trade him. If you trade him at the end of the year, you got no dead cap hit. You cut him at the beginning of this year, or still during the season. I apologize. That's a $2.5 million cap hit that this team's going to suffer. Trade him. Get rid of him. I don't care if you get a 6th or 7th round pick for him. He's got to go. He's becoming. You don't want him to become a cancer in the locker room per se, and cause more problems moving forward. This team has a lot of talent on them. I still think they do. It just comes down to the fact that you have to get the most out of these guys and get some of these guys back healthy. It's tough when you look at the inactives for yesterday's game. A.J. Green was out. William Jackson, Drake Kirkpatrick, Carl Lawson, John Miller, Andre Smith, and Carlos Dunlap were all not active. That's right there. There's some big name players that were not playing on your team in this game. So that's what you have to avoid. With this team and moving forward. So when it comes down to it, again, we're staring down at another long season here in Cincinnati. But I went on a lot longer than what I expected. I didn't expect to go on this long, but I did, and it's tough, but sometimes you kind of ramble on when you're dealing with a rough team like we are right now. So I think that's it. I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, thank you guys for checking out this episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts, presented to you by Impact Sports Cincinnati. You can head on over to feeltheimpactsports.com for more of this type of content, along with other stuff. I do Bengals preview every week, along with college football preview. And as always, please subscribe and like my YouTube channel. That would be fantastic. I would truly appreciate that. That's where the video version of this is. Audio version you can check out at anchor.fm/Chris-Asbrock, and that's where you can find all this stuff. I also host the Chris Asbrock Show. Not that, I'm just kidding. The Coach Scott Hicks Show. And I do that there, and along with a couple other podcasts, the audio version of this is on there. And as always, make sure you check out myself on Twitter at I am Chris Asbrock and at FTI Sports. And I believe that is it. So thank you all for your support. It is truly appreciated. And I will be back next week after most likely another bad loss to the Los Angeles Rams. So thank you guys for your support and have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank you so much and have a good one.